The red sun of Zebrax grew unstable. Each day, the flares reached higher into the atmosphere. Each night, the skies glowed with strange colors that had never been seen before. The scientists of the Zebraxian High Council gathered in their circular chamber, their scaled faces showing signs of deep worry. "The calculations are certain," said Chief Scientist Malk, his voice trembling slightly as he addressed the 20 council members. "Our sun will go supernova in less than 10 standard cycles. There is no way to prevent it." The room fell silent. 10 cycles, roughly equivalent to 9 Earth years, was not enough time to evacuate their entire civilization using their current space fleet. With 3 major continents fully populated and orbital cities housing millions more, the Zebraxian civilization of 3.2 billion souls faced extinction. "There must be a solution," said Elder Vez, the oldest member of the council. Her scales had faded from vibrant blue to a pale gray with age. "What about the Deep Space Array?" The Deep Space Array was an ancient technology built by their ancestors. 5,000 years ago, it could send and receive signals across vast distances of space. Their ancestors had built it in hopes of contacting other intelligent life, but no one had ever answered their calls. "The array hasn't been fully operational in centuries," said Communications Director Krith. He was younger than the others, his scales still bright and his movements quick. "But we could try to restore it. It would take several months." "Then we start today," announced High Leader Voss, rising from her seat at the center of the council. "If there are other advanced civilizations out there, perhaps they can help us. We have no other choice." For the next 4 months, Zebraxian engineers and scientists worked day and night to restore the array. They recovered old parts from museums, rewired ancient circuits, and powered up systems that had been silent for generations. The work was difficult, but hope drove them forward. On the day they activated the array, thousands gathered around the massive installation. The structure rose from the desert floor like a forest of metal trees, each trunk topped with a dish that pointed toward the stars. In the control center, Krith, now appointed as ambassador for this mission, prepared to send their message. "Are we ready?" he asked the team of operators. "All systems functioning at 98% capacity," replied lead engineer Fala. Her claws moved quickly across the control panel. "That's better than we expected." Krith nodded and pressed the communication device attached to his throat scales. "High Leader, we are ready to transmit." High Leader Voss's voice came through clearly. "Proceed, Ambassador. May the stars hear our call." Krith took a deep breath and began to speak into the transmitter. The array would convert his words into hundreds of languages and mathematical equations that, they hoped, any advanced civilization could understand. "This is Ambassador Krith of Zebrax. Our star is dying. In less than 10 cycles it will explode, destroying our homeworld and killing our people. We are 3.2 billion souls in need of evacuation assistance. We have ships, but not enough to save everyone. If you receive this message and can help, please respond. We will provide all information about our biology, technology, and needs. Please help us. These are our coordinates." The message went out, carried by the array to hundreds of star systems across the galaxy. Then there was nothing to do but wait. Days passed, then weeks. The operators took shifts, listening for any response, any sign that someone had heard them. The public was not yet told about the coming disaster. The council wanted to have some hope to offer along with the terrible news. 1 month after sending the message, they received their first response. It came from a civilization that called themselves the Artheon Collective. "We have received your distress signal," the message said. "While we sympathize with your situation, we cannot interfere with the natural cosmic order. To do so would violate our most sacred principles. We wish you peace in your final days." Similar messages arrived from other civilizations, the Plex Harmony, the Dovan Mines, the Ulton Federation. All expressed sympathy. None offered help. Some even suggested that the end of a species was simply part of the natural order of the universe and should be accepted with dignity. "How can they be so cold?" asked Fala as another rejection came through. "Don't they understand that real people will die?" Krith had no answer. The hope that had driven their work on the array was fading. After 2 months of responses, all saying essentially the same thing, the council prepared to tell their people the truth. They were alone in their final days. That night, as the night staff monitored the array, a young operator named Tins noticed something unusual. "Ambassador, wake up," he called through the communication system. "We're receiving a new signal and it's different." Krith rushed to the control center, his sleeping robe still wrapped around his body. "What is it? Another rejection?" "No, sir," said Tins, his eyes wide with excitement. "They're asking questions about our situation, specific questions about our needs, our biology, our technology, and they've sent information about themselves too." Krith looked at the incoming data. It was from a species called humans from a planet called Earth. Unlike the other responses, this one wasn't filled with philosophical statements about cosmic order. It contained practical questions and information. "How many ships do you have? What is your atmospheric composition? Do you have specific dietary needs? What is your tolerance for gravity and radiation?" As the translator matrices worked to decode the full message, one part came through clearly. It was the first line they had sent. "This is Captain Lisa Peterson of the Earth vessel Northern Star. We've received your distress call. Hold tight. Humanity is coming." Krith felt his scales flutter with emotion. After all the rejections, after all the philosophical excuses, here was a simple promise of help. "Send them everything they've asked for," he ordered, "and add my personal message. Thank you for answering our call when no one else would." For the next several days, the array buzzed with constant communication between Zebrax and Earth. The humans asked practical questions and sent their own data. They explained that they would send a small scout ship first, then begin mobilizing their fleet for a full evacuation mission. When Krith presented this news to the High Council, there was disbelief mixed with hope. "Can they really help us?" asked Elder Vez. "Do they have the technology?" "Their technology appears less advanced than ours in many ways," Krith admitted. "They've only had faster-than-light travel for about 50 Earth years, but they're determined to try." "But why would they help when no one else would?" asked High Leader Voss. Krith looked down at the last transmission from Earth. Captain Peterson had added a personal note at the end. "Because that's what we do," she had written. "When someone calls for help, you answer. Everything else is just excuses." For the first time since learning of their son's fate, Krith felt real hope. They weren't alone after all. Someone had answered their call. Humanity was coming. 3 Earth months passed quickly. The Zebraxian government had shared the news about their dying son with the public. They also shared that a species called humans had promised to help. Many Zebraxians doubted that help would really come. Some had already accepted their fate. Others held on to hope, watching the skies each day. Ambassador Krith stood at the large window in the High Council chamber. The strange scout ship from Earth would arrive today. He felt both excited and nervous. What would these humans be like? Would they really be able to help? "Ambassador, they've entered our system," said Communications Officer Tins. "Their ship is small, just as they said it would be." Krith nodded. "Send the landing coordinates for the central spaceport." The scout ship called Northern Star came into view about an hour later. It looked crude to Zebraxian eyes, all sharp angles and visible propulsion systems. Zebraxian ships were smooth and elegant, using gravity manipulation, technology that left no visible trace. A crowd had gathered at the spaceport. Some came out of curiosity, others out of hope. The ship landed with a loud hiss of engines that made several Zebraxians cover their sensitive ear membranes. When the door of the ship opened with a mechanical whine, the crowd went silent. 3 beings stepped out. They were shorter than most, Zebraxians with no scales and only hair on the tops of their heads. Their skin was various shades of tan and brown. They wore blue uniforms with patches that showed a planet and stars. "Ambassador Krith?" asked the one in front, a male with short gray hair. "Yes, I am Krith," he replied, stepping forward. "Commander Eric Watson of Earth," said the human, extending his hand. Krith had studied this greeting custom and carefully took the human's hand. It felt warm and soft, so different from a Zebraxian's scaled palm. "This is Chief Science Officer Olivia Grant," Watson continued, gesturing to a female human with curly, brown hair. "And this is Cultural Liaison Paul Martinez." The third human had darker skin and a friendly smile. "Welcome to Zebrax," said Krith. "The High Council is waiting to meet you." As they walked through the city toward the council chamber, the humans looked around with clear interest. Zebraxian architecture featured tall, spiral buildings that caught the light from their red sun. Plants with purple and blue leaves lined the walkways. "Your city is beautiful," said Olivia Grant. "It reminds me of some of our underwater structures on Earth, but above ground." "Thank you," replied Krith. "It was built to last thousands of years." He tried to keep the sadness from his voice but failed. Paul Martinez noticed. "We're going to do everything we can to help your people, Ambassador. Earth has already begun, mobilizing the entire space fleet. But you've only known about us for 3 months, said Krith in surprise. That's all the time we needed, said Commander Watson. When people heard about your situation, there was no debate. Everyone agreed. We had to help. In the High Council chamber, the humans explained their plan. More ships were already on the way. Larger ones that could carry thousands of Zebraxians. But even with all of Earth's ships, they couldn't evacuate 3.2 billion people quickly enough. We're going to need to combine our technologies, said Olivia. Our ships with your advanced gravity systems. Together we might be able to create transport vessels that can carry hundreds of thousands at once. But your technology seems... High Leader Voss paused, searching for a polite word. Primitive, Paul suggested with a smile. By your standards, it is. We've only had faster-than-light travel for 50 years, but we're quick learners and we're very good at adapting. Why did you come? Asked Elder Vez suddenly. The other civilizations we contacted, some far more advanced than yours, all refused. They said it was against their principles to interfere with cosmic events. The three humans exchanged looks. Commander Watson spoke first. We've been sending messages into space for over 200 years, he said, asking if anyone was out there. No one ever answered us. We thought we might be alone in the galaxy. When we received your message, it changed everything for us. Not only were we not alone, but we could help. How could we not? As for those other civilizations, added Olivia, we've never heard of them either, but their philosophy isn't one we share. On Earth, if someone needs help and you can give it, you do. It's that simple. The discussion continued for hours. The humans asked detailed questions about Zebraxian biology, their technology, their social structures, everything they would need to know to help with an evacuation. By the end of the meeting, even the most doubtful council members were starting to believe. These humans, despite their less advanced technology, had a determination that was hard to ignore. There's one more thing you should know, said Commander Watson as the meeting ended. Earth isn't a unified world like yours. We have many nations, many governments. But when your message came, all those differences were set aside. Every nation offered ships, resources, even their homes. People all over Earth are preparing places for Zebraxians to live. You would take us to your world? Asked Krith, amazed. All of us? Not just Earth, said Paul. We have colonies on Mars, settlements on some moons in our system, and orbital habitats. It won't be the same as your homeworld, but you'll be safe. As they left the council chamber, Krith walked with the humans back to their ship. Night had fallen, and the unstable sun had set, revealing a sky full of stars. When will the other ships arrive? Krith asked. The first wave should be here within a month, replied Commander Watson, led by Admiral Karen Wells on the carrier Horizon. That's when the real work begins. Outside the Northern Star, a small crowd had gathered again. Many had waited all day just to see the humans. A young Zebraxian child stepped forward, looking up at Olivia with large, curious eyes. Are you really going to save us? The child asked. Olivia knelt down to be at eye level with the child. We're going to try our very best, she said, and humans are very stubborn when we try to do something. The child's parent pulled them back, apologizing for the interruption, but Commander Watson waved it away. "No need to apologize," he said. "That's why we're here." As the three humans prepared to return to their ship for the night, Krith felt something he hadn't felt in months: genuine hope. The humans didn't have the most advanced technology. They didn't have all the answers, but they had come. One idea. Everyone else had turned away. Humanity had answered. Their sun was still dying. The clock was still ticking. But Zebrax was no longer facing the end alone. The massive Earthship Horizon entered the Zebraxian system 1 month later, just as Commander Watson had promised. It was followed by 20 smaller ships of various designs. Some were military vessels with sleek lines. Others were converted cargo ships, bulky and practical. All of them had been modified to carry passengers instead of goods or weapons. Ambassador Krith stood at the spaceport with the High Council, watching the ships approach. The horizon was huge, almost twice the size of the largest Zebraxian vessel. It settled into orbit rather than landing, too large for any spaceport. "Admiral Wells is requesting permission to shuttle down to meet with you," said Communications Officer Tins. "Permission granted, of course," replied High Leader Voss. The shuttle that landed was much bigger than the Northern Star. When the door opened, a tall human female with short blonde hair stepped out first. She wore a dark blue uniform with more decorations than Commander Watson's. "Admiral Karen Wells, Earth Combined Fleet," she said, saluting the Zebraxian leaders. "I bring greetings from Earth and our colonies. We're here to help." Behind her came a team of humans: engineers, doctors, logistics experts, and translators. They carried tablets and equipment, ready to work. "Thank you for coming, Admiral," said Krith. "Your arrival brings hope to our people." "We've brought 20 ships in this first wave," said Admiral Wells. "More are being prepared and will arrive in the coming months. We've also brought supplies and equipment to start building temporary shelters for those waiting for transport." "How many can you evacuate with these ships?" asked High Leader Voss. "About 3 million with this fleet," the Admiral replied. "But we're not just here to shuttle people away. We need to work together to create better solutions." Over the next few days, the humans set up a command center in a large building provided by the Zebraxian government. They called it Operation Lifeline. Maps of Zebrax and star charts of nearby systems covered the walls. Humans and Zebraxians worked side by side, planning evacuation routes and priorities. Dr. Alan Murphy, a human with glasses and a thoughtful expression, asked to see the full communication records from the other civilizations who had refused to help. Krith assigned him to work with the Zebraxian historians. "There's something I don't understand," said Dr. Murphy after studying the records. "These civilizations, the Artheon Collective, the Plex Harmony, the others, they all claim to be peaceful and enlightened. Yet they'll let billions die rather than interfere with cosmic events. How can they justify that?" "Perhaps they see the universe differently than we do," suggested historian Jella, an elder Zebraxian with faded green scales. "Our ancestors detected signals from at least 17 advanced civilizations over the centuries. We sent messages to all of them. None responded until your people did." Dr. Murphy and the Zebraxian historians continued to study the intercepted messages from the other civilizations. What they found disturbed them deeply. "These aren't just philosophical differences," Dr. Murphy explained during a briefing with Admiral Wells and the High Council. "It's a deliberate policy of non-intervention and isolation. They're watching us right now, monitoring the situation." He displayed a translated message they had intercepted between 2 alien civilizations. "The humans' involvement with the Zebraxian extinction event is troubling," the message read. "Their interference sets a dangerous precedent. The natural cycle of cosmic development must be allowed to proceed without manipulation by emerging species." Another intercepted message was even colder. "The Zebraxian extinction, while unfortunate, provides valuable observational data on stellar decay patterns. The human intervention compromises the purity of this data." "They're treating your extinction like a science experiment," said Admiral Wells, her voice tight with anger. "They could have helped at any time, but chose to watch instead." "How can advanced beings be so cruel?" asked High Leader Voss. Dr. Murphy shook his head. It's not cruelty in their minds. It's a philosophy they've developed over thousands of years. They believe that non-intervention is the highest form of wisdom. And what do humans believe? Asked Krith. Admiral Wells looked at him directly. We believe that standing by while others suffer when you have the power to help is wrong. Simple as that. Theory and philosophy are fine until lives are at stake. Then you act. The evacuation planning continued. Engineers from both species worked together to modify the human ships with Zabraxian technology, making them more efficient. The first groups of Zabraxians, mostly children, elderly, and medical cases, began boarding the ships for transport to Earth and its colonies. Then a new message arrived, directed not at the Zabraxians, but at the humans. It came from a civilization called the Talaxian Concord, one of the oldest and most powerful in the galaxy. Human representatives, the message began, your interference in the natural end of the Zabraxian civilization violates the unspoken agreement all advanced species have maintained for millennia. We strongly advise you to withdraw and allow natural processes to unfold. Continued intervention may result in sanctions against Earth when you eventually join the galactic community. Admiral Wells called an emergency meeting with the High Council when this message arrived. The humans and Zabraxians gathered around the communication display, reading the threat with concern. What are these sanctions they mention? Asked High Leader Voss. We don't know, replied Admiral Wells, but it doesn't matter. We didn't come all this way to be scared off by threats. But if helping us will harm your future, Krith began. That's not how we make decisions, interrupted Commander Watson. We don't abandon people in need because it might be inconvenient for us later. Admiral Wells nodded. I've already sent a response to the Talaxian Concord. Would you like to hear? When Krith nodded, she played the recording of her message. This is Admiral Karen Wells of Earth. We have received your warning and reject it completely. Humanity will not stand by while billions die. If that makes us unwelcome in your galactic community, we'll create our own community, one based on compassion and mutual aid rather than cold observation. Earth stands with Zebrax today and always. The room was silent for a moment after the message ended. Then Elder Vez, the oldest council member, spoke softly. In all our history, she said, we never imagined that our salvation would come from a species younger and less technologically advanced than ourselves. Yet here you are, defying the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy to help us. That's the thing about humans, said Dr. Murphy with a small smile. We're not very good at knowing when we're outmatched. As they left the meeting, Krith walked beside Admiral Wells. The star's deteriorating faster than we predicted, he said quietly. Our scientists now estimate we have only 4 months, not the year we thought. Admiral Wells looked at him steadily. Then we'll just have to work faster. Humanity is stubborn, that way. Outside the command center, Zabraxians gathered each day watching the humans work. They had begun to call them the answerers, the ones who had answered when no one else would. The news that the star would go supernova in 4 months instead of a year changed everything. Admiral Wells called an emergency meeting with all human and Zabraxian leaders. We need to face facts, she said, pointing to the charts displayed on the wall screens. With our current evacuation rate, we'll only save about 20% of the population before the star explodes. The room fell silent. Even with all 20 ships working non-stop, they couldn't move billions of people fast enough. More human ships were coming, but they wouldn't arrive in time. There has to be a way, said Commander Watson, studying the data. We're not giving up. Captain Samantha Nichols, a tall human with dark skin and short black hair, had been quiet during the meeting. She was the engineer in charge of modifying the Earth ships with Zabraxian technology. What if we stop thinking about moving people one by one? She said suddenly. What if we think bigger? All eyes turned to her. Explain, Captain, said Admiral Wells. Captain Nichols walked to the front of the room. The Zabraxians have theoretical designs for mass transport systems. They never built them because they didn't have the power sources, but we have ships with fusion reactors that could power these systems. Are you suggesting we combine the technologies? Asked Chief Scientist Malk. Exactly, said Captain Nichols. Your theory, our power sources. The Zabraxian designs could move hundreds of thousands of people at once. But these are just theories, said Krith. We've never tested them. Then, we'll test them now, said Captain Nichols firmly. We don't have the luxury of perfect solutions. We need to try everything. Admiral Wells studied the captain's face, then nodded. Make it happen, Captain. Whatever resources you need. Teams of human engineers led by Chief Engineer Doug Bennett began working with Zabraxian scientists day and night. They converted cargo bays in the larger human ships into massive transport chambers. The work was dangerous. The new systems used enormous amounts of energy and untested theories. 2 weeks into the project, disaster struck. An experimental drive on one of the ships overloaded during testing. The explosion killed 30 humans and dozens of Zabraxians. The command center was silent when news of the accident arrived. We should stop, said High Leader Voss. The cost is too high. No, said Doug Bennett, his face gray with grief. His arm was bandaged from injuries he had received in the explosion. They died trying to save your people. We won't let that be for nothing. The work continued. The first modified ship, the Earth vessel Horizon, was ready for testing after another week of nonstop work. Captain Nichols herself led the test, taking the ship to Zebrax's outer moon. Transport system is online, she reported back. We're ready for the first large-scale test. Volunteers from the Zabraxian population, 10,000 of them, boarded the Horizon. The tension in the command center was thick as they waited for news. Transport beginning now, came Captain Nichols' voice over the communication system. There was a long silence. Then, transport complete. All 10,000 arrived safely at the moon base. The system works. Cheers erupted in the command center. With this new technology, they could evacuate millions at a time, not just thousands. For the first time, saving the entire population seemed possible, but the other civilizations weren't happy about this development. More messages arrived, not just from the Talaxian Concord but from other species as well. All carried the same warning: stop interfering or face consequences. They're really afraid of what we're doing, said Dr. Murphy, reading through the latest messages. They see us as disrupting some cosmic balance. Let them think what they want, said Admiral Wells. We have work to do. The modified ships began, transporting Zabraxians in huge numbers. Earth had prepared temporary homes in their space stations on Mars and in various orbital habitats. It wasn't perfect, but it was survival. As the evacuation accelerated, the star grew more unstable. Huge flares erupted from its surface. The skies of Zebrax glowed with strange colors even during the day. Time was running out. President Julia Rodriguez of Earth sent a message to the Zabraxian people. Earth stands with you in this dark hour. Our homes are your homes. Our worlds are your worlds. We will not rest until every Zabraxian is safe. The President also sent a message to the alien civilizations that had threatened Earth. Humanity rejects any philosophy that places theoretical cosmic order above real lives. We will not stand by while billions die. If that makes us primitive in your eyes, so be it. This message was broadcast across all channels that the Zabraxians had access to. Many of the other civilizations who had been monitoring the situation received it as well. The work continued day and night. The new transport systems worked better than anyone had hoped. Entire cities were evacuated in days rather than months. But problems still arose. The modified ships needed time to recharge between jumps. Some systems failed and had to be repaired, and the star continued to deteriorate faster than predicted. 3 months into the evacuation, with about half the population safely moved, the Zabraxian scientists came with grim news. The core is collapsing, Chief Scientist Malk told the command center. We have 1 week, perhaps less, before supernova. The room erupted in panic. Admiral Wells raised her hands for silence. How many still need evacuation? She asked. About 1.6 billion, replied Krith. His scales had lost their luster from stress and lack of sleep. Admiral Wells looked at the data, then at Captain Nichols. Can we do it? Captain Nichols studied the numbers. Not with our current ships. We'd need twice as many. The second wave of ships from Earth won't arrive for another month, said Commander Watson. The room fell silent again. They had come so far, saved so many, but it wasn't enough. Half the population was still in danger. There is another option, said Doug Bennett quietly. The Zabraxians have ships too. Not as many as they need, but they have them. If we could modify their ships with our technology. It's never been done, said Captain Nichols. We don't know if our systems would be compatible. We have to try, insisted Bennett. We have 1 week to save 1.6 billion people. We use every ship, every shuttle, every transport pod available. Admiral Wells nodded. Gather every engineer and scientist we have. We're going to modify every ship in this system, human and Zabraxian. We don't stop until everyone is safe. As they left the meeting, Krith walked beside Admiral Wells. Even if this works, this is now your fight too, he said. The other civilizations won't forget what you've done here. Admiral Wells looked at the Zabraxian. Good, she said. We don't want them to forget. Maybe it's time someone showed them a different way to live in this galaxy. Above them, the red sun of Zebrax flared ominously. They had 7 days to save a civilization. The final week before the star's collapse was the most intense time any human or Zabraxian had ever experienced. Every ship in the Zabraxian system was converted to carry as many people as possible. Engineers worked without sleep, modifying Zabraxian vessels with human technology and improving the transport systems. The evacuation centers were crowded with families waiting for transport. Children cried. Adults tried to stay calm. Everyone was allowed only one small bag of personal items. Everything else had to be left behind. We'll make it, Ambassador Krith told the crowds, though he wasn't sure if he believed it himself. The humans have not failed us yet. As the sun grew more unstable, the weather on Zebrax became dangerous. Storms raged across the continents. The ground shook with tremors. The planet itself seemed to know that the end was near. 4 days before the predicted collapse, Admiral Wells received a surprising message. It came from a civilization called the Antari Network, one of the 17 advanced species that had refused to help earlier. We have been observing the human efforts to save the Zabraxian people, the message said. Your actions challenge our understanding of cosmic balance. We wish to ask questions about your philosophy. They can ask their questions after everyone is safe, said Admiral Wells, not bothering to reply. We don't have time for philosophy right now. 3 days before collapse, 500 million Zabraxians still needed evacuation. Every available ship was in constant use. The transport systems were pushed beyond their safety limits. Breakdowns happened more often. We need more power for the final transports, said Captain Nichols, looking exhausted. She hadn't slept in days. The remaining ships can't handle this many people at once. What about the shield generators, suggested Doug Bennett. We could redirect power from the shields to the transport systems. Without shields, the ships would be completely vulnerable to the supernova, said Captain Nichols. They wouldn't survive the blast wave. But if we time it right, said Bennett, the last ships could transport their passengers to safety, then the crews could use escape pods to reach other ships already at a safe distance. It was a dangerous plan. The crews of the last ships would be taking an enormous risk. But no one had a better idea. 2 days before collapse, with 300 million Zabraxians still waiting, Admiral Wells called for volunteers for the final transport missions. Every human ship captain volunteered immediately. This isn't just your mission, said High Leader Voss. Zabraxian captains will volunteer as well. We will not ask you to take risks that we ourselves would not take. 1 day before collapse, the final evacuation plan was set. 12 ships, 5 human and 7 Zabraxian, would make the last transports. They would take all remaining Zabraxians to safety, then their crews would attempt to escape before the star exploded. Among the human captains was Frank Collins, a veteran spacer with 30 years of experience. His ship, the Earth vessel Dauntless, was one of the largest in the fleet. "Are you afraid?" Krith asked him as they reviewed the final transport plans. "Yes," said Collins honestly. "But being afraid and doing something anyway, that's what courage is." On the final day, the last of the Zabraxians were loaded onto the 12 ships. The red sun had grown so unstable that its surface churned with massive flares. The planet's atmosphere was beginning to burn away. "All civilians loaded," reported Captain Collins from the Dauntless. "Beginning transport sequence." One by one, the ships activated their transport systems. In massive bursts of energy, millions of Zabraxians were transported to safety at Earth's colonies and orbital habitats. But as the last ship, the Zabraxian vessel Hope's Light, prepared to transport its passengers, a massive solar flare struck the planet. The resulting power surge damaged the ship's systems. "Transport system failure," came the panicked report. "We can't complete the transport. 12 million civilians still on board." In the command center, now located on a ship at a safe distance, Admiral Wells and the Zabraxian leaders watched in horror. "Can we send repair teams?" asked High Leader Voss. "There's no time," said Captain Nichols, studying the data. "The star is entering final collapse. Minutes, not hours." "Then we've failed," said Krith, his voice breaking. "No," came Captain Collins's voice over the communication system. "Not yet. Dauntless to all final transport vessels. I have a plan." The 5 human ships and 2 Zabraxian vessels that had completed their transports turned back toward the Hope's Light. They positioned themselves in a protective formation around the damaged ship. "What are they doing?" asked Krith. "They're going to use their ships as shields," said Admiral Wells, her voice quiet with awe. "They're going to buy time for repairs." The crews of the 7 ships worked frantically to transfer power to the Hope's Light, helping repair its damaged transport system. Solar radiation battered their vessels. The shields began to fail. "Transport system back online," reported the captain of the Hope's Light. "Beginning emergency transport now." As the 12 million Zabraxians aboard the Hope's Light were transported to safety, the 7 shield ships took the full force of the solar radiation. Their own escape became impossible. "All Zabraxians safely transported," came the final message from Captain Collins. "It's been an honor to serve with you all." Moments later, the star collapsed. The resulting supernova engulfed the inner system in a wave of energy and light. The 7 shield ships and their crews vanished in the blast. 3 days later, on Earth, the Zabraxian High Council gathered with human leaders for a solemn ceremony. The names of the 7 captains and their crews, over 400 humans and Zabraxians, were read aloud. "They gave their lives so that millions could live," said President Rodriguez. "There is no greater sacrifice, no greater love." Ambassador Krith stepped forward. "My people have no words that can express our gratitude. You answered our call when no one else would. You gave your lives to save ours. We will never forget." In the months that followed, the Zabraxian people settled across Earth's colonies. They began building new lives, new homes. And something unexpected happened. Messages began arriving from other civilizations, the same ones that had refused to help before. "The actions of humanity have caused us to reconsider our ancient philosophies," wrote the leader of the Talaxian Conquered. "We request permission to send representatives to Earth to learn more about your ways." Similar messages came from the Artheon Collective, the Plex Harmony, and others. The cold, distant observers had become curious students. The galaxy was changing. 2 years after the evacuation, a monument was unveiled on Earth's moon. It showed human and Zabraxian hands clasped together, reaching toward the stars. At its base was an inscription in many languages. "When we called into the darkness, only humanity answered. When wisdom counseled acceptance, humanity chose action. We live because others chose to die for us." As Admiral Wells stood before the monument with Krith, now the Zabraxian ambassador to Earth, a child approached them. A young Zabraxian with bright blue scales. "Why did humans help us when no one else would?" the child asked. Admiral Wells looked at Krith, then back at the child. "Because that's what being human means," she said simply. "When someone needs help, you help them. Everything else is just excuses. Above them, ships from a dozen civilizations orbited Earth. The galaxy was learning a new way to live among the stars. A way based not on cold observation, but on compassion, courage, and the simple human belief that no one should be left to face the darkness alone.